Kia ora everybody, my name is Michelle Tanner and I'm the District Polio Chair for District 9930, and today I'm going to talk to you about polio eradication, where it all started, and give you a bit of an update on where we are now. So let's have a look at what polio actually is. So it's a virus and it can live in the gut and the throat. So that means it can be excreted, gets into the sewerage, and then if sewerage comes in contact with drinking water, then it can spread like that way. There are 3 types of poliovirus, 1, 2 and 3. No difference in how they present, but they are important for monitoring with global eradication. Humans are the only host, and we have a history of polio dating right back to 1400 BC. Now, what's really important to remember is that 95% of people with polio have no symptoms. So this makes it very different from something like smallpox, which it was pretty obvious if somebody had smallpox, you could see it. But 95% of people walking around infecting other people do not know that they have polio. So how does polio? Now, only 1% of people infected with polio will actually have symptoms. They will either have bulbar polio, which is where the cranial nerves are paralysed, which paralyses your ability or takes away your ability to breathe, and these patients will end up in iron lungs. You won't see pictures of lots of people in iron lungs in developing countries. Those people that get bulbar polio there will just die. What you will see in developing countries is a photograph like this taken in Nigeria of people that have survived polio but are left with horrendous deformities and paralysis. So in order to eradicate a disease, what do we need? First of all, we must have a bug that only lives in humans. If it lives anywhere else, then we can't eradicate it. We require effective vaccines, and obviously we require the ability to distribute those vaccines. We need good surveillance system to look for the bug, to monitor cases, and we need the political and social will. So how did Rotary get involved? Well, in 1979, as part of the 3H's program, Rotarians vaccinated 6 million people in the Philippines. And being Rotarians, they thought, well, if we can do this, they eradicated polio, and if they can do it in the Philippines, why can't we do it in the rest of the world? So Rotary International went to the World Health Assembly of the World Health Organization in 1984, and were basically told, yeah, do-gooders, go away. Come back when you've raised 120 million and we'll talk to you. So Rotary went away and in 1985 launched Polio Plus. Polio Plus still exists. It's the pot of money that all of our polio fundraising goes into. By 1988, Rotary had raised not 120 million, but 247 million US dollars. They go back to the World Health Assembly and they pass a resolution there to eradicate polio and form the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. So you now have Rotary and the World Health Organization. They were joined by UNICEF and CDC, the Centers for Disease Control in America, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and then most recently Gavi, the Global Vaccine Alliance. So let's have a look at the progress that we've made. So looking at eradication by World Health Organization regions, you can see that the Americas were eradicated polio in 1994 and Africa most recently in 2020. The Eastern Mediterranean contains Pakistan and Afghanistan, and we have no idea when we're going to get on top of polio there. And then looking at those 3 virus types that I talked about before, type 2 was declared eradicated in 2015 and type 3 in October 2019. So we're only dealing with wild polio virus 1 of the polio viruses. So this next table shows the numbers of wild polio virus throughout the world for the last few years. What is really heartening in this slide is that in 2022, Pakistan had actually gone 15 months without a case of polio. Obviously, everybody was getting very excited. And then if we get another outbreak. It feels very much like one step forward, two steps backwards sometimes. Let's now look at the vaccines that we have available to us. Basically, there's oral polio vaccine and inactivated polio vaccine. The first one is a live vaccine, and you have to use that as your first tier of treatment or management to eradicate disease. Once you've got on top of the cases, you then overlap with inactivated polio vaccine, and then you can withdraw inactivated or polio vaccine. And if you've got no disease, you don't need vaccines at all. Now, the reason that we have to use OPV first is that it provides gut immunity or gastrointestinal tract immunity. So the immunity is actually provided right the way through the gut. The vaccine virus is excreted. With IPV, it doesn't provide any immunity in the gut. The vaccine is injected and it protects the individual from suffering the effects of polio if they get infected. So they can still ingest polio, they can still excrete it in their feces, but it doesn't actually get into their nervous system and cause any paralysis. So IPV is not shed in the feces, it doesn't provide gut immunity, but it does provide individual protection. Now, IPV cannot mutate, but OPV being a live vaccine, it can. So what that means is that the vaccine-derived virus is able to get into the sewerage. And if you've got low immunity within the community, that can spread and it can stay there for a long time, and eventually it can mutate and cause further disease. And this is what we're really battling with at the moment, I guess, the side effects of OPV. So circulating vaccine-derived polioviruses are vaccine-derived polioviruses which can spread in populations with low immunization rates and eventually mutate. The mutated virus is virulent and can cause disease in under or unimmunized people. So we all know that there has been polio in London and New York State. So let's have a look and see what's going on. Firstly, in London, so what happened here was the water samples that were checked for polio virus, which is what is done routinely. You would expect to see some vaccine-derived polio virus occasionally, because somebody coming in from a country where they're using OPV, are they going to excrete the vaccine virus, and you would expect to find it in sewerage. However, there was vaccine-derived virus was detected in multiple, or not many, but several places in northwest London, which raised alarm bells, and there was an intensive vaccination response to that to try and make sure that everybody is protected. There have been no cases of vaccine-derived polio virus in London. However, in New York State in America, they did have one case of vaccine-derived polio virus, and as a result, they went back and checked their water supplies or water samples that had actually been taken for COVID, and they had a look for polio virus, and they found between April and August of this year that there was vaccine-derived polio virus in their water. The one case was a young adult who was unimmunized, and there was nothing wrong with his immune system. He was immunocompetent. So we're battling with circulating vaccine virus, as well as the very last places where we have wild polio virus. But before we started vaccinating, there were 350,000 cases of polio every year. So this is people paralysed by polio. And so we have this amazing legacy already, and it will just get better in the future. So in a polio-free world, we will not require vaccines. Imagine how much money that's going to save. We will leave, or we have, an infrastructure that is able to respond to other health crises. And the polio infrastructure has been used for Ebola and COVID already, and is available for any other viruses or bacteria that attack us in the future. Because of the polio eradication program, health surveillance and data systems have improved immensely. They're not perfect in some countries, but there is a massive infrastructure in the surveillance side that wasn't there before. We have the ability to reach every last child on the planet. And if we can reach them to give them polio vaccines, we can deliver other vaccines and medical interventions as well. We also have a wealth of knowledge and experience, and it is estimated that once we have eliminated polio over the next 20 years, we will save 25 billion health dollars. Imagine what we can do with that. But the most important thing is that 20 million more people are walking today than would have been if we had not started our polio eradication program. So here we are today. We have the social will. Usually we have the political will. We have the knowledge. We have massive achievement behind us. But the challenges remain of resources. That is why we need you to continue with fundraising, why Rotary has to continue to put money into this pot. Remember, every dollar that we put in, Bill and Melinda Gates will match by $2. So if you raise $100, that becomes $300 for polio eradication. Conflict and security issues remain. Health systems, I said they weren't perfect. And of course, we've been battling a global pandemic. So in summary, I think we need to be very, very proud of what we have achieved. We need to hang on to our faith that we can do this. We have many challenges in front of us, but we are learning many lessons as we go all the time. And I just want to thank all of you for your interest in polio eradication and for doing your bit in supporting this program for Rotary. Thank you very much.